And the areas that we're going after, whether it be alcohol use disorder, PTSD, resistant depression, these are things that affect all of us.
Hello, you're watching Proactive. I'm joined by Graft Polymer Chairman Dennis Purcell. Dennis, very good to speak with you. Could you start maybe by reminding us a little bit about your background?
Yes. Hi, Stephen. Nice to see you again. Thanks for having me. I've been in the life sciences field for a number of decades, Stephen, both on the investment banking side at a firm called Hambrecht and Quist that was acquired by J.P. Morgan, and taking a lot of companies public and advising on mergers and acquisitions and the like. And then for the last couple of decades, I had started a venture capital firm called Aisling Capital, which invested in the life sciences field. We're based in New York, primarily, and invested in hundreds of companies and took hundreds of companies public. In the last year or so, I moved up to the chairman role and senior advisor role, so that I was able to do kind of some more things that I wanted to do that I was not able to do when we were running the venture capital firm. So it freed me up to work with different companies and spend a little bit more time than I could when I was running the venture capital firm. So I've been involved in the industry for a long time. Took a lot of the companies public and have invested in a lot of them, and found that really wanted to start to spend my time on areas that really had high unmet need that the venture community, my peers, were not particularly focused on over the last number of years in the biotech world. Um, Over the last half a dozen years or so, there's been a significant focus on precision medicine in terms of cancers, rare diseases, and we've done a wonderful job in terms of actually curing some rare diseases and actually doing a great job in terms of the cancers and the like. What we have to pivot to a little bit, I think, going forward is some of the more prevalent diseases, some of the bigger diseases that still are plaguing society. We've started to see that a little bit in the last year or so with the obesity drugs, particularly what they call the GLP-1s. And we think that the obesity drugs will be the biggest selling drugs of all time. Um, and with that, the other area that has been neglected for too long, in my opinion, has been the whole mental health field. Um, and particularly as we came out of COVID and the like, the field of mental health needs new treatments, new modalities, because it's such a significant problem. And so what I met Anthony, and I met a team at Graph Polymer, and I wanted to try to spend my time trying to help to see if I can move that part of the life sciences industry forward, and join Graph Polymer as chairman, and hopefully move Graph Polymer in kind of into the mainstream. Because what we're finding is some of these new neuropsychiatric treatments have been incredibly successful in mid-stage clinical trials relative to existing treatments. So we still have to run and we have to still run phase 3 clinical trials, and we have to replicate what we did in the phase 2 clinical trials. But if you look in the U.S. at some of these companies, the data so far have been really outstanding, as it has been in Awaken, by the way, also. So what I tried to do was I wanted to play a part in that role in terms of trying to bring that whole field of mental health into the mainstream, into the investment mainstream, because it hasn't been particularly investment mainstream yet, but it will be.
Dennis, how do you see the biotech industry and within that, the field of neuropsychiatry evolving?
Yeah, the biotech industry has been challenged over the last few years. We had a very great lead up into COVID, if you will, and even as the beginning of COVID, we had a lot of new companies go public. We had a lot of new companies started, if you will. The biotech industry has grown substantially over the last decade, probably worldwide from say 2,000 to 5,000 companies. So it's gotten very large, it's gotten very mainstream. It's attracted a lot of new investors, if you will. It used to be that it was a set group of investors that invested in many of the same companies. Now we have a lot of new investors. The last couple of years has been very difficult for the sector. The IPO market has dried up. It's been difficult with uh, other investment opportunities for institutional investors. They kind of shied away from the market, and now we're getting back to normal, if you will. So I think that kind of some of the excess in the system has been wrung out, and I think that going forward now we're getting into a place where we should be, which is that the companies that should be funded are going to get funded. The companies that probably shouldn't get funded probably won't get funded. And I think that in the neuropsychiatric field, there are lots and lots of different companies. So we're going to have to sort through, the investment community is going to have to sort through which ones that they really want to focus on and back. And I suspect, like other disease areas, we'll see some consolidation and some companies coming together and things like that. But I think what we will see is we're going to start to see investment dollars focus on the area, because there are a lot of investment dollars sitting on the sidelines. And the areas that we're going after, whether it be alcohol use disorder, PTSD, treatment resistant depression, these are things that affect all of us. So these are areas that really have that touch almost, will touch all of our lives. And so what we're trying to do is our success or failure over the midterm here will be whether we can actually get treatments, new effective treatments to patients, and that's the goal. And I think that there's still work to be done in the neuropsychiatric area. It's because it's not mainstream yet. We have to work with regulators to figure out how they get these drugs approved, which they'll have to do because the data is so good. And we'll have to figure out how you commercialize them. How do you actually sell them? How do you get them into patients' hands? And how does that work? And how do you do it safely? And and in the neuropsychiatric field, these are some modalities that are kind of new to people, and we have to figure out how to use them properly and counsel people how to use them. But the results of some of these midterm clinical trials are quite stunning, much like Awaken's alcohol use disorder trial in the phase 2 was quite stunning. Now, there are risks because, as I say, you have to make your phase 3 work, or the phase 3 has to work, and that's always a risk. It's a risk for every company. But if the data hold up, we're going to see really a rash of, in my opinion, in the midterm, near to midterm, we're going to see a number of new treatments emerge, and that mental health become one of the areas that the investment community starts to focus on. I mean, we see, and a lot of neuro areas, not even neuropsychiatric, but even neuro areas. There's a lot of focus on Alzheimer's. There's a lot of focus on dementia. These are things that touch everybody's lives. And what we're hoping to do with this acquisition is to build kind of a integrated company where we had some near-term revenues, near to midterm revenues, because Awaken has late-stage trials going on in the UK. It's going to have midterm trials going on in the US, and then it has earlier stage programs. So what we're trying to build is an integrated company that then would appeal to an investor base that wants to actually invest in the whole mental health field. And we have the added advantage that Awaken does most of its work in the UK on the R&D side, and has partnerships with the NHS and the MRC and the like, so that that's a real plus. And Grafts, our listing on the London Stock Exchange, we believe is a plus because of the fact that the London Stock Exchange is so deep and provides liquidity and capital that we otherwise couldn't get. So that we think that there's a lot of pluses to the acquisitions. We still have to execute properly, and we have to run the trials to make sure that and get approval. But this acquisition does a lot to help us set ourselves up to be able to generate the capital to be able to complete all the trials that we're doing and continue our preclinical work.
Hopefully, the rebranded Solanas Therapeutics attracts those investment dollars you were speaking about, Dennis. Thank you very much for your insights today.
Great. Thank you, Stephen.
That's Graft Polymer Chairman Dennis Purcell.